Welcome to the Life Science Success Podcast. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Don, and I'm a consultant in life sciences and also the founder of D3 Digital Media. D3 employs decades of life science experience and innovative technology to develop and define digital marketing strategies for healthcare companies that they can build their digital voice and increase awareness and drive leads, positioning themselves effectively in the competitive marketplace. I would encourage everybody that's listening to go to our website at d3dm.com and take a look at all of the different offerings that we have for life science and healthcare companies. So with that, in this episode of Life Science Success, my guest is Rahul Sharma. He's the co-founder and CSO of Scienetix, a company dedicated to enabling molecular diagnostics. Dr. Sharma is a board-certified laboratory director and technical lead for next-generation sequencing and PCR-based assay development and clinical testing. He has developed multiple molecular diagnostics tests and translated them into clinical testing. In addition to that, so we don't normally have two guests, but we also have the CEO of Scienetix. Rob Carpenter is a healthcare executive and educator with over 25 years of experience in developing, managing, and assimilating healthcare companies, and he's distinctly skilled in business development and various business growth strategies. He's the founder and current CEO of Advantage Genetics and highly complex research laboratory accredited College of American Pathologists with a concentration in infectious disease, molecular genomics, and Scienetix, a bioscientific company centered around products to optimize molecular genomic workflows. So with that, welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot for being here. So Rahul, why don't we start with you? Just real quickly, would you tell the audience just a little bit about yourself?
So I come from a typical research background. I did my PhD from India in 2008, and I had almost 10 years career researching leprosy that not many people do. There was only one program in the United States that I was running for leprosy research. That's where I got introduced to these high technologies, next generation sequencing, PCR-based, developing PCR-based assays. And that was kind of other way around because leprosy was such a field that no commercial entities were interested into developing anything for that disease. So I took it that on myself. I established their clinical lab, next-gen sequencing facility, and biggest achievement was that we proved that in the United States, people still get leprosy from armadillos out of anything in Louisiana. But that's been 10 years in research, and I decided to make a switch to industry, and then I worked for some small startup companies to get my hands on the entrepreneurship. The whole idea was quitting the government job, and research was to start something my own. And then I worked for an oncology company, run that for 2 years in St. Louis, and then I joined Dr. Carpenter in Advantage Genetics as their chief innovation officer, where I was tasked to develop new tests and new assays, particularly in NGS field and PCR field, and that was in the middle of the pandemic. So at that time, of course, the pandemic was horrible for whole world, but for the scientists, the PCR became a household name for everybody. Like now, after pandemic, the RT-PCR has become like blood test. Everybody knows what RT-PCR is. So as pandemic was declining, everybody has the PCR. It became a household name. So then Dr. Carpenter and I discussed what else we can do with this technology that's became very common now. So we decided to move that technology into other infectious diseases and enable other laboratories, particularly the laboratories which has either introduced to the PCR technology because of the need in the pandemic, or they have some infrastructure of the PCR but don't have a really deep understanding or all the expertise they need to establish a PCR-based test. So we decided that we can provide them a easy to implement solution that Scienetix will provide as a kit and that's what everybody got used to during pandemic. Like in academics, we never use PCR kit. It's like you buy all the spices for the PCR and you make your own PCR. That's what being trained. But after pandemic and clinical, and that makes sense in a commercial setting, you want to provide everything as a package that laboratory can take and implement into the clinical testing. So that's why we partner. I have a great deal of experience in developing these assays, and I find a perfect partner, Carpenter, and we already had infrastructure at Advanta, everything we needed. So we just tap into that infrastructure and started Cynetics, where we are developing these products, and we have a great advantage at Advanta that we can test them in-house first, implement in one laboratory, make up the workflow, and then take it to the market so other can easily follow. That was the whole flow of starting Advanta. Starting Cynetics. I still work at Advanta too. So
as many life science entrepreneurs want to find out is that one of the things that it seems like we all seem to find is that you work at multiple companies. That's just the way it works in this industry, I think. So that's a great transition. So Rob, would you mind just introducing yourself?
Sure. Well, I actually have not worked at a lot of companies. I've only had one job since I was 16 years old. And so I've always been an entrepreneur, it seems. And my start was starting a group of medical clinics years ago, back when I was skinny and had hair, that I developed and actually sold to a publicly traded company. And so that was sort of my foray into developing and managing medical entities. And then, oddly enough, I ended up buying that company back a couple of years later and then developing it out. And then it was when I noticed all these vendors coming in asking for laboratory tests, and you get 5 or 6 vendors a day, and I'm like, there's got to be something in this laboratory business. So from there, we started a small laboratory that's grown significantly over the years. We started that in 2012, I believe. And from that, the evolution of infectious disease, molecular genomics, developing that out. And then, of course, Dr. Sharma did a good introduction of how we got together. And from that progression, was able to develop out these centralized products to really help optimize genomic workflows. And it's been a great partnership.
Very good. So, I guess just maybe to clarify a little bit more in terms of Scientix, what is the key offering that you have? I mean, it sounds to me like it's a PCR kit.
Yes.
Okay. And
yeah. So
go ahead. Yep.
Well, yeah. So the idea here is to decentralize care and optimize workflow for reduced cost, greater throughput, and allow laboratories to be able to adopt these tests at a much easier pace, especially the transition from these COVID labs or laboratories that really haven't progressed to PCR-based testing or other types of infectious disease testing. So it's this ease of adoption of workflow, this multiplex arrangement where you can have these kits to really, from a business standpoint, which is what I look at from the economics and the analytics of the economics, really makes sense in a workflow standpoint.
Okay. All right. And then is there a specific set of equipment that the tests have to run on?
So that's the beauty. That's a opportunity or beauty we took it, that most of the lab, it runs on the same set of equipments that most labs started for running COVID. So they don't need to buy a extra set of equipment or any extra infrastructure. So we try to make our test more of a platform agnostic, so they can run on any commonly available PCR machines they have available in their labs.
Okay.
So to name a few, Bio-Rad, Quantum Studios, and Ross Light Cyclers, those are 3 most commonly used instruments. And there are some other new doubly developed instruments that we are working on a partnership if we can launch those. But if they're available, I don't see any reason they shouldn't work on those instruments.
Okay. And then in terms of the diagnostics that you have, what are the main things that people are testing for?
So the main things people are testing these for, like a UTI infection, complicated respiratory infection, gastrointestinal infections, STI infections. So the most common infectious diseases that are very prevalent, and particularly where traditional testing that we call culture sensitivity, the microbiological sensitivity, has limitations either in terms of their diagnostic power or in terms of their turnaround time. It takes longer time. And that's where we are bringing the PCR-based test to speed up the diagnostic process and also expand our reach for the organisms that we can test for.
And are you working with core labs or any I guess hospital-based organizations as well? Outside of the normal diagnostic types of facilities, and just trying to think of the sort of aspects of your overall business and the customer approach. And maybe Rob, if you want to take that one.
Yeah, sure. So we work with various entities, anywhere from the doc in the box to the hospital system. And so, and other laboratories, of course, that are wanting to adopt this technology. We do collaborative research with other genetic companies and with the university. We have several studies that we've published, several IRBs that we have progressed to do more studies. And so we're continuing to evolve not only the technology, especially from an optimization standpoint, and then just really hope to increase the array of offerings that we can have in the infectious disease market through the collaborations.
Yeah, it seems like it would make this capability more accessible, is what I'm hearing. Overall in your offering. I guess the other question that I have is in terms of the processing itself. I mean, are there key benefits that people are seeing from from the products that you offer?
Yeah, yes, sure. So, like Dr. Sharma said, turnaround time is key, but from a clinical standpoint, it's about the right diagnosis at the right time. And
Mm,
so, if you're able to optimize that workflow and decrease the cost at the same time, then it gives stewardship to the whole process of healthcare, meaning that the patient gets treated faster and more accurately, the insurance cost is lower, the margins still have good returns from a laboratory standpoint. And so it really provides a holistic approach to be able to offer testing that's delivered cost effectively and timely.
yeah, yeah. And then, I mean, I would imagine from the lab processing side. So Dr. Sharma, you mentioned this as well, that, as of today, a lot of laboratories have to sort of collect the individual supplies, where you're offering, more of a kit that enables this, to happen as well.
Yeah, so that's what we are trying to do. That we provide every ingredients that they need. Even if you're familiar with PCR, even we provide the plate already pre-plated. All they have to do is add their sample, put it on the machine, and go. And we configure that according to their need. We have our pre-designed panels that we offer as a testing, but we work with the other different partners to develop the test. We have a good R&D, and we offer that as a custom development test, or a test for any laboratories or special needs they have.
And are there other organizations? I mean, I'm thinking of organizations in our market that where they're developing diagnostics and they're wanting kind of their own panel for the future. Are there other companies that are reaching out to you that essentially are working alongside as well?
Yeah,
Yeah, go, Doctor.
yeah. So, Yeah, there are companies, larger companies that reach out to us to do private labeling and OEM solutions. So we build custom panels for them, custom solutions for their offerings. So I think that's a segment of the business that's really going to continue to grow significantly. Their reach of market is already there, so it's an easy plug and play for us. And then we're really good at the R&D, especially Dr. Sharma and his team, and being able to customize that, and not only a specific organism offering but a multiplex offering is very advantageous.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, I could see that as well, because I mean there's just a lot of diagnostic companies that they may have the equipment, or may have the capability to sort of help finalize what they want their assay to be, but at the same time having the ability to offload some of that finalization and R&D and packaging and other things, I would think would be beneficial as well.
Sure, and it's an easy plug and play when they already have the market share. So if we can tap into that market share from a supplier standpoint, so to speak, then that's good business for us as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would think too, the other opportunity for this, I'm just, again, kind of brainstorming live here, but I mean, my mind goes to this idea of, if you could have on the shelf, kits for things that you don't use as often as well inside of the lab, that would be, extremely beneficial versus having, all of the chemicals and other things taking up space inside of your lab, where you're not using it as often either.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, is there anything new or, that's coming up, I guess in the market, soon that people should be aware of that are checking us out here?
Yeah, so we are working on developing these tests we call it extraction free. That means right now, most of the tests that you still have to take the sample and pre-process before you add it to the reaction that is being tested on the instrument. So we are working on either independently and in partnership to make these tests and extraction free. That means you can just take your sample directly with no processing or a minimum processing. Generally, you require a pre-processing that goes through another instrument, and then you take the sample into the PCR machine. So that will cut down the workflow and make it more accessible for any lab, and of course cheaper. That's the one thing. And the second that we are working on this point is to, right now it's globally accepted that you can only test for 4 targets, or maximum 5 targets in one PCR reaction. We are working on developing that into taking it to 8, 10, 15 targets. So you can just run one reaction and you can test for 10 different organisms that might be causing you respiratory infection or UTI infection or a GI infection. So increasing that capacity beyond what is accepted right now. That's what our basic core on R&D is focused, and we should be having some of those announcements in incoming future very soon.
Well, very good. And then in terms of the accessibility of your products, are they able to be purchased worldwide?
Right now, we are focused on a US market, but we have been in touch with some South American companies and some companies in India to tap into those markets. So we are in conversation with different other countries and other entities, but we are not really actively selling anything unless Dr. Carpenter has, because he deals more of that that side.
We've always got deals going.
Yeah, no, that's
Yeah, right.
Great point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was just saying that the novelty here is the optimization, and so to speak to what Dr. Sharma said with regards to getting that product out extraction free, you increase the multiplex capability. It really has a real good runway, so to speak, to be able to be utilized worldwide, and we're just really excited about that progression. And we have interest coming in from all over. I think right now we really want to perfect the product at certain levels, make sure that the stages of roll out are good and appropriate. And then as we progress them and get more confidence in the science, then we'll continue to roll those out accordingly.
Okay. And I'm envisioning that the anybody that's interested would be able to go to Scienetix.com and learn more about you from there.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. And then so let's start with you, Dr. Carpenter. What's the greatest leadership advice that you've ever received?
Probably be reliable even when it's not convenient. Um, I really try to live by that. We acculturate our people in that way too. We have a wonderful team. I feel like that in the laboratory space, especially, it's so fluid and dynamic that there has to be a lot of reliability when it's not convenient. So I really try to live by that personally, not only with our business and leadership, with my family, and personal friends. That's, I believe, has served me well. And there's a lot of ancillary benefit that comes if you are reliable, even when it's not convenient. So I'd say that's probably it.
Yeah. I think, I feel like this industry has a lot of surprises, in it, and you have to figure out, how to sort of roll with the punches, if you will.
Right.
Yep. All right, Dr. Sharma, how about you? The greatest leadership advice that you've ever received?
Yeah, I think I've been always more of the scientific leadership advice, and my mentors in previous, like from the PhDs, and they grew up to become like head of the leadership on the national or international level, and that's what I learned. That y- they told me, like, you never stay, if you're a being scientist, don't stay just in the lab. Look at the bigger, like, the application of your science. If you're not
Mm,
looking at that application of science, you are not reaching out to the leader of like, that's my biggest advice, is just to look at the application, where this is their scientist going to lead in terms of the application, in terms of the healthcare or public health, or where you're leading it. And that was kind of my let's say motivation to leave the pure academics to move into the industry research. And I just want to share, like, when I left my academic, I thought that time I had like 30 or 35 publication, and I thought that would be it. Like, I would never publish after, because most people don't publish in academics. And since I joined Advanta and Scienetix in last 2 years, we have published 7 publications. That's I didn't publish that much when I was in academics, and that was my whole job, to write and publish.
right.
So the good science can come. So that I just want, like, so it's not always that either science or business. You can still do together. You can do good science and still do good business.
Yeah.
That's my biggest advice that I received, and I think, yeah, I try to follow this, and I found the right partner to do, who knows the business and I know the science.
Yeah, it's a great point as well. It is interesting to me to watch how much, especially smaller companies that are growing, right? I mean, you have to publish, to keep investors interested, to keep the industry interested. I mean, I feel like there's a true drive to for posters, as well as formal publications as well, inside of our industry. It feels like, you're more or less forced to kind of talk about, what is it that you're doing, as well, by the investors and other people in our industry. Yeah. And then there are 3 questions that I like to ask every guest. So Dr. Sharma, I'll start with you. What inspires you?
Every time I think scientifically anything moving forward, I can just take it and run with it. I can stay up all night. If it's moving scientifically forward, changing, like, as I mentioned, if changing, like, right now there's a limitation of 4 targets in one well. If I see the limitation moving it to 6 and I come up with the idea, then that just blows me off and I can continue.
Yeah. I mean, scientific inspiration is something that is encouraging in this space as well. How about you, Dr. Carpenter? What inspires you?
Well, right now, what inspires me is when Dr. Sharma thinks something up, I have to go find the money to pay for it. So, well, but I tell you what really inspires me is and has for years and years. I also teach here at the university, and the kids inspire me. I mean, the older I get, the more I love being around the kiddos and seeing them grow and being exposed to different things. In the business community or the scientific community and the growth there. And I really do feed off that. And we have a lot of, it's funny, we have a lot of kids in their 20s and early 30s that I call them kids, but that really run our place and they do a great job. And I just really get a lot of energy from that. So I love to see that growth. I love to see them grow and move on and do greater things. And so we've always been really good about trying to accomplish that with kiddos, and we give a lot of scholarships and just really try to progress them. And in their progression, we always seem to come out and benefit. So that's I really get a kick out of that.
Yeah, very good. So, Dr. Carpenter, I'll stay with you. What concerns you?
My capacity. From a market standpoint, from a scientific product standpoint, what concerns me is everybody is trying to pursue the next, evolution. Being in that competitive market is concerning. But overall, we really are competing against ourselves, and I really believe that. And we have a great team here. And so really, my concern is always, am I leading well enough? Am I strategically thinking about things the way I need to think about them? Am I carrying the weight that I really need to carry? Because it's different doing the hard work than it is doing the heavy work. And so, I get concerned a little bit sometimes with carrying the heavy work, to be honest. But we continue to push through and partnering with folks like Dr. Sharma and the energy from the kiddos, get you through.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, Dr. Sharma, what concerns you?
In general, like this kind of I'm just talking more of a philosophical way, that in general distrust on science that kind of concerned me is because we have built a long history and changed the world by science and innovation, and it's kind of a growing distrust on science. I know there's bad science and good science, but a blanket distrust on science concerns me a lot. If you and people getting advice or knowledge from the people who has no idea what they're talking about. They have never seen seen how a medicine works or vaccine works or a technology works, and getting advice from that kind of concern me. And some maybe because as a scientist we are not good at marketing. So that was also a reason that when you approach, like, we need to do that, we need to speak up a little bit more. So that concerned me more, because scientists contribute a lot to the society, but they don't get this kind of a heroic welcome or response. And I don't that, but at least distrust or a kind of a neglect of that development and contribution, that concerns me a lot. And in personal level, sometimes I now, being in a business environment, also concern me that what if my decisions are not productive or I'm proved wrong. If you are an academic, you don't really concern that much of that, but now it is a more of your personal money and your reputation as a stake. So that concerns a little bit more now than I was in academics.
Yeah, I mean, along that same line, right? I think of, kind of where we are right now with artificial intelligence. And I mean, a lot of people have gotten their thoughts in terms of, how to think about a new vaccine or a new diagnostic, from social media. They see a post or whatever and they believe. I saw your eyes there. Exactly. I mean, that's exactly how I feel about it. But I mean, I have to hope that now with the introduction of artificial intelligence, right? So, if you train an AI model first to consider peer-reviewed articles first and not social media, to consider that maybe, last if there's no other source for, whatever particular bit of information. But yeah, I have to hope that our society only grows stronger from this availability of better tools and capabilities, and people that can think about the way that that science is used and leveraged in our space, right? Versus all of these outside voices where they say you're going to get vaccinated and have a chip implanted, which crazy. So yeah, I didn't know if you had any other follow-up comments, but yeah. So if you do, you. Go ahead.
It just reminds me one thing. I was in my wife, she's a veterinarian, and they have these notices all over their place where people bring their pets saying, don't ask questions, don't get your knowledge from Google, ask your doctor. And she has this always, she's come home frustrated that people come read these weird things from somewhere, and they want their doctor to either implement that or at least ask questions about that, and doctors should know everything about that, like what does this weird thing does. So
I mean, and on the other side, right, I mean, I just look at all the information as well for our care providers and all the information they have to care for or look at in terms of care, being able to care for us. And it's got to be a tough job, with human beings as well, to try and have all of that information available. So last question, and Dr. Sharma, I'll stay with you. What excites you?
Excite me new opportunity. Either now I always been opportunities in scientific way, but now also excites me opportunity in a business world. If we can create a new product uh, that can take us next step further, that's like the most exciting thing right now. Or we can solve a scientific challenge. Mostly that's really exciting. Just being in the scientific environment.
Absolutely. And then Rob, how about you?
Yeah, the same. I mean, it's always about progression, and so when I really look deep inside, if I'm being creative, then in some way, whether that's through publishing or creating businesses or creating people, those things really inspire me. And um, I think the creativity of what we're doing now, progressing products that have novelty, that have societal impact, that's really cool stuff. So I really get inspired with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Rob and Rahul, thank you so much for being on the Life Science Success Podcast. I greatly appreciate you being here and for sharing with us the story of Scienetix and, what you're working on with regards to these diagnostic kits. And, again, I would encourage anybody that's listening, to take advantage of reaching out to this organization and learning more.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks
for
a lot.
having us.